Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our first meeting to order. The Human Resource Committee member are Member Doucette, to my left, Member Valiquette, Madam Vice Chair, and myself, Ila Chantier, the three board members to the Human Resource Committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order for May 2022. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to recognize that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Host Nation. The peoples of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Ottawa Police Service Board honor the peoples and land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. Today, Ottawa is home to approximately 40,000 First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. Ottawa's Indigenous community is diverse, representing many nations, languages, and customs. The Ottawa Police Service Board honors all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contribution to this land. First order of today of business is we need to have an election of a committee chair. Our first order of business is elected committee chair. I will now open the floor to nomination from the fellow committee member. The member is, I said earlier, the Vice Chair Valiquette and Member Doucette. So I'll start by nominating Madam Vice Chair to be the chair of Human Resource Committee. Any other nomination? No. Okay. So with that,
she already beat me at the arm.
So we'll turn it over to. But just before I turn it over to the vice chair, to the chair of this committee, this committee is advisory committee, so we do not make decision on this committee, but we do make recommendation to the board. And then we can debate it or we can approve it at the board level. So with that, I turn it over to our new chair. Thank you for taking on this, Madam Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. President. I am pleased to be the chair of the Human Resources Committee, and I will now proceed with the confirmation of the agenda. Confirmation that the Human Resources Committee confirm the agenda of May 20th, 2022 meeting. Is the agenda confirmed?
Thank
you. Confirmation of minutes. Confidential minutes 12 of November 16th, 2021, that the Human Resources Committee received confidential minutes 12 from the 16th November 2021 meeting. Are the minutes received? Items of business. We only have one item of business today, and that is a presentation regarding a proposal on a community engagement strategy for the chief recruitment process. We have Margaret Campbell from Ordre's Burnstone joining us by phone on the Polycom. Hello, Margaret. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
We also have Hector Addison of Hefid Solutions. Welcome, Hector.
Thank you.
At this point, I will turn things over to Ms. Campbell to introduce this item before we hear from Mr. Addison. Margaret, over to you.
Thank you so much. The board hired Ordre Burnstone back in March to assist with the recruitment of a new chief and deputy chief of police. Our initial proposal contemplated our firm engaging a third party to assist with the community engagement strategy to inform the qualities the board should be looking for in its future leaders. Our firm has partnered with your board in the past, and we've also facilitated previous community engagement. However, community expectations around police and their oversight bodies is changing, and as a result, we knew we needed a different engagement approach. Important discussions around public trust in policing and the relationship between police and racialized populations are taking place. We wanted to make sure this engagement took into account some of the learnings from those discussions, including ensuring safe spaces for dialogue, leveraging existing community networks and leaders who have the requisite trust of community members to solicit candid feedback, providing an honorarium to recognize the value of the time and input of those participating in engagement sessions, ensuring community members can relate and identify with those seeking their input, and finding ways to reach voices that are typically reached in broader and more general engagement efforts, such as surveys. Proposing to partner with Hefted Solutions to assist with the board's engagement strategy for the chief and deputy recruitment. Hefted Solutions prepared a proposal that we believe is culturally appropriate, inclusive, multi-pronged, and which can be delivered on time. And with that, I will now turn things over to Mr. Hector Addison to further elaborate on the proposal.
Thank you, Margaret. Can you sit here, Hector? Closer.
I was the one who told them to go. Just for eye contact purposes.
Oh, I see. Just so you're
Yeah.
closer to the apartment.
All right, thank you. So I think I was driving one day and Margaret just called me and I said, what is this about? And they said, I want you to help us with the consultation process. And I said, okay, can you call me back? And then the following day. And then she did. And once she did, and I realized that she was serious about what she was talking about. And I said, okay, something we do, so why not? And that's how we submitted the proposal in the first place. Today, I will be basically talking about, not more about the proposal itself, which I know you have copies about, but I'll talk about the community engagement process, how the whole process will plan out. So that's what the presentation is all about. And so we'll talk about basically it's 4 steps: the design, the engagement, the delivery, and the implementation part. Yeah, so this is just the process map that we have, basically situating that the community members and community organizations at the center. We believe in shifting power, and the power dynamics has to be on the community. I call myself chief servant for the association that I serve, and that's because I want to demonstrate that if you are a leader, you are a servant first. Right? And so when we see ourselves as servants, then we realize that the community, the local people on the street who have hired us, right, using taxpayer money to pay us, and therefore we have to give them that respect that's due. And so basically that's what it's about. So when we talk about the engagement, it's about how do we ensure that people who are mostly neglected sometimes when it comes to public discourse are brought in there and we hear their voices. And so from engagement, then we go to the delivery. The delivery is just about preparing the report and delivering it to you, and then go to the implementation where Margaret and his schools basically put on together. But we also believe that there has to be a learning curve, a learning in the process, right, of doing this. So next year, 5 years from now, when we're doing it again, there might have to be a lessons that we have learned, process assets that we have that we'll be able to use to inform the rest. So that's what it is. So in the designing process, it's just understanding the community. What is the temperature, right? We have to gauge the temperature of the community. And that may also include reviewing some existing literature and then some materials that has already been prepared. We also have to do what is known as a process and cultural assets mapping, right? What are the assets that we have in the community already that we can rely on, leverage that strength, right? We have community leaders who are infinitely connected to different communities. We have to bring them all on board. Right? So that's defining the plan now. How are we going to do it, from what state to what state? Everything has to be planned out. Right? So that's it. Determine the engagement method. Is it surveys, is it interviews, is it virtual, is it in person? How are we going to do it? In the proposal, we said we're going to do 3 engagements. Right? 3 engagements. One is French, Francophones, okay, dedicated to Francophones. 2 will be in English. There will also be an online survey, which is a bilingual survey that the general public will be able to fill out. But there will also be targeted interviews, right, where we want to.
Are you taking questions during the presentation? Or
No, yeah, you can ask me questions anytime. There's a section that I will be taking more questions, but yeah, you can stop me anytime.
So if I understand correctly, the engagement methods are already determined. That part of the design phase is completed. Is that
Not, the design phase is not completed yet.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, because the document referred to the engagement methods in the proposal. Are those concrete, or will they potentially change during the design process?
It could change.
Okay.
Yeah, it could change. And that's the thing. We believe in the bottom-up approach, right? Design with the people, right? Instead of just imposing stuff on them. Yeah, so it could change. Thank you for asking. Okay. And so this is basically the project management approach that we adopt. Who are the stakeholders that we need to talk to? So we identify the stakeholders. We identify a way of communicating with stakeholders. Some stakeholders want to be kept abreast frequently. Some will like emails. Some will like to be contacted by phone. So we need to establish the stakeholder communication process as well. And then the engagement is identify some risk and mitigate the risk. Right? We cannot assume that community engagement is just a straightforward stuff, right? There are inherent risk in everything we do. And as a good project manager, you need to be able to establish and identify risk and respond to those risks and opportunities. And then you have a schedule. I know this is a very tight schedule. So there is basically no room to make mistakes, right? Yeah, so yeah, the schedule is pretty much determined. We need to be able to finish this process in a set time. And then we plan execution. How do we go about carrying out the engagement itself? And that's what it's looking. And the engagement is that I already talked about targeting. What it means is that we are purposefully going to target certain communities, certain individuals, certain people, families, people who have dealt with police and all those people before, right? The communities that are apprehensive about policing and they want to see change. People who are looking to abolish the police. Okay? All those voices need to be heard, right? They need to be heard. And so the only is that we have a silent majority who are there. We have to preserve the space and making sure those voices are heard as well. But it has to be targeted. It's going to be a deliberate approach to everything we do. It's going to be representative. What it means that to represent Ordre. It's not like it's they're going to have just a single community determine everything. We'll make sure it's very representative and it's very authentic and collaborative, meaning that we need to work with certain organizations who are mostly gatekeepers, right? We work with some certain organizations. For instance, youth organizations, sports organizations, different organizations that basically reach out to specific population groups, work with them. Okay, so as I said earlier on, we're going to have 150 participants. 150 participants is the base. They are going to be paid $50 honorarium each. And that's because the community feel like they are being oversurveyed, and therefore, when they are giving up their time and energy, they have to be compensated. And I think it's fair. So that is built into the proposal as well. And then, so I'll talk about the 3 open engagements, and then we have the interviews and the online survey. The survey will be there for about 3 weeks, so people can participate. And what we will do is that we are going to have a separate website set up that people can go in there and make contributions. I also find a way to engage. So, and that will be able to meet all the project teams. Yeah, then it comes to writing up the whole story, right? Putting everything together. So that's what this slide is all about. Collecting the responses that we have through the survey, through the face-to-face interviews or virtual interviews or whatever that we had, write the story, draft the report, and then we send it to you, send it to stakeholders to verify that, okay, this is what you told us. We want to make sure you validate it, right? And that's the feedback loop we are talking about. You validate it and show that, yes, you came to us, this is what you said, you captured our voice correctly, right? And then we finalize the report, and then we communicate to stakeholders that the work is done, right? And then we go to the delivery stage where we we basically had the report delivered to you. And then we'll have as a project, any project we carry out, say about lessons learned, right? What lesson did we learn? And then we document those stuff for we call it, becomes a process. I said, next time we are doing it, we say, okay, we made a mistake here, we did this, we should have done it this way. And then we close the project. So basically, that's what the presentation is about. I think we can move to the other. Yeah, so the implementation basically comes to you, and then you and Margaret continue the process, right? This is basically the engagement to inform the process. So when you are designing the job descriptions and everything, you know what the community wants. So that's what it's all about. And then we learn, and then we go back. That's the iterations. Yeah, so that's the timeline, and that we expect the whole thing to be completed. We understand the importance of finishing the project in time. Okay, this is the time for questions.
Yeah. May I start?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Margaret and also Hector for your presentation this morning. And I have questions as well, but I'm going to turn to my committee members to go over it.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Very, very thoughtful. Question on the 150 participants. I'm curious how we came up with the number 150, how we will select those participants. And I'm really curious of the honorarium in the sense of, I was surprised when I saw that. I thought that this is something that the community would welcome and welcomely engage in helping to define the parameters. And it seems odd to me, and that's just my own personal opinion, that we're paying an honorarium. So I'd like to have some thoughts around that as well.
That's a good question. Okay, let's start with a number. Okay. When I spoke with Margaret, and then he told me, he said, okay, maybe we can have 150. Okay, I threw it out there. But I feel like it was a good number, and it was sufficient. Not that we will just cut it and say, hey, it's only 150 and that's it, right? Yeah, but because there are several, we have the online survey that will also be taking place. Those who are taking place in the online survey, that's not counted among the 150. Okay, that's completely different. There will be individual interviews with the leaders and the people, community leaders. That's also counted as part of the 150. The 150 are people who show up either on Zoom or in face-to-face room like this, okay, to be engaged. And for the compensation aspect, yes, and I understand why we didn't used to have compensation for people as like engagement of this nature, right? But it becomes necessary these days that, especially for community that feels like they have been over-surveyed. And most of the time when people come and then they talk to them and gather their feedback, they go back, but they don't go back to them and say, hey, this is what we got and this is what we are doing. So already there's a trust broken in the system, right? There's a deficit, trust deficit. And so at least that compares, I know $50 is not really anything, but for somebody to come in there, it's a motivator for people to show up. For that parent, that mother, that $50 will go a long way, right? It's not like they are paying them for anything, but to give themselves an hour or two to sit down and for them to contribute, we feel like we have to compensate them for the time. That is it. Okay. So it's a procedure, and either we adopt. We want to make sure that people feel like, yes, we are not buying their voices. We are not buying we are paying them to say things that we want to hear, right? But the compensation maybe they will use for childcare or something. We need them to provide an even playing field for people who really deserve to be in the room to be able to come. So that's what the compensation is for.
And how are you selecting the 150 participants?
So the 150 participants, we use the snowball approach, basically, and we also know some communities. I think I put in the proposal some of the suggested communities will be contacted or will be approaching. We know the communities we basically have to be talking to. Okay, like the Burundian communities that lost about 6 or so people last year, okay, of the youth from their community. We need to talk to them. Okay, so we have the Francophone community often indicates that they are left out mostly in some of these conversations, and that is why one of the sessions is solely dedicated to the Francophones, right? And they told us they want to meet face to face, okay, and they want food present. Okay, so that's the culture. We need to respect that, right? And so those are the areas that we have. We have also basically severe Ordre. We know where certain things happen, right? And those communities need to be engaged. Those in the social housing sector, those living in different places, binary community area. We need to make sure. That's why I said it has to be representative, it has to deliberate, right? Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So Hector, you and I, we talk, obviously there's some of the timeline, but before I go to the timeline, I just want to follow up a little bit on what my colleague was talking about, you know, the honor of $50 to the person. So in the city, in order to help folks come to the meeting, we pay for mileage, we pay for babysitter, we pay for transit. If public transit is not available, they have to take a taxi or other. So I'm honestly, I'm more than good with that, because people, to come to obviously there's a commitment on their part to their family. So that, we explained properly, and I'm with it. But I'm a little bit interested with your selection, and I see from the people who you work with or who contributed, there's different folks with multiple language offered. So if someone wants to speak to you folks in a different language, in Arabic, in Somali, in other, would you be able to accommodate them with some of your outreach?
That is very true, and that is why we always say we need the engagement to be that whoever is in front of them should be able to understand what the people are, and it should reflect the people's culture, right? Yeah, so we have connections all over the place. Most of our facilitators speak multiple languages, right? Yeah, so if a Somali mother comes and he doesn't feel comfortable speaking in English, he should be able to speak in Somali. Right? If somebody comes and say, "Hey, I only understand P," okay, and I want to speak in P, they are accommodated too. So yeah, we designed it in such a way that it has to be how to be able to break barriers in terms of language.
Okay, that little bit to the survey you're going to have, and I know survey sometimes you can make it long, you can make it short. So what's your, and maybe you and Margaret can help me with this, just to understand how is the survey is going to be developed? Like, is it? I understand it's going to be English and French because of the time and and what language you select and what language you don't. So we understand it, and I want to commend you for having a designated meeting just for the Francophone community, because we hear it also on the city. We provide translation, but sometimes not enough. They want to see face to face, which is fine. But as far as the survey, are you going to work with the committee before the board meeting to give us a sample? This is, folks, what I'm looking for in the questionnaire. Is that good? Do you want to add? Do you want to subtract? Is that going to be something we're going to be able to work with you on?
That is absolutely correct. You own that process on it. Okay. So we cannot design a survey that without you knowing what it is that we are asking, right? And in terms of the length, for me, I get very upset when I have so many open-ended questions in survey and I have to type in stuff, right? I open it, when I look at it, and I just shut it down, go to do my something. I don't want that to happen, right? And we know there's always a low rate, turnout rate in terms of survey. So we have to make it as easy as for people to be able to contribute, right? Not more than 10 minutes, okay? We should be able to be done with the survey. It shouldn't be more than 10 minutes max. Okay. Anything more than 10 minutes becomes a stress, right? And so we have that in mind. But in terms of the questions itself, we will have the questions, we will approve it, we will test it and see exactly how long it takes for an average person to be able to run through the survey.
And in the past, when you already established your survey, we share it with the other like, stakeholders, city council staff, because they're the ones who hear quite a bit from the community. Would you also share it with that level of
Sure.
engagement?
Yeah, I would definitely involve you in it. And that would mean that the city councillors and their constituency, they all have to participate. They are important stakeholders, right? And so, so we cannot do it without the city council, right? Yeah, so it's really important. We'll share the survey with everybody. It's for the general public. The survey is for everybody, right? So the more people participate in it, the better it is, because we don't want a situation where it's only a few people who participate and it makes interpretation of the data and generalization very difficult, right? Yeah.
Okay, and my final question is about the timeline, Hector. So the design of the survey and others, but you're saying for 2 weeks and engagement 3, and then delivery in 2. So is that giving you enough time to be able to deliver what we have?
Initially, we put in a longer duration, right? But then we had a conversation and then indicated that we need this thing to be speed up, right? We need to be able to get because we have a timeline that you set. The job description has to be prepared and it has to go out at a certain date, right? So we got to respect that. Yeah. So and that's to make it work. What it means is that we have to hire more people to do the work. And so we are bringing in more people. Even though we shorten the time, it doesn't mean that the quality of the work is going to suffer. Right? We'll have more people doing the work, and so we'll be able to deliver on time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My field of work is very similar to yours. Yes,
Okay.
I'm in public engagement as well.
Thank you.
And so I can appreciate what you're up against and the timeline. And I know that if everybody, does this sort of thing, you can get it done. And I'm thinking that you're looking at a July delivery.
Yeah.
July.
Yeah.
Okay. My questions are, I'll start with the stakeholders. You've given us a very good description so far. I'm wondering about people with disabilities and also the aged. If you are going to reach out to those individuals as well in your plan. And I'm also wondering about the Asian community. So can you speak a little bit about those 3 areas and how you're going to reach out to them?
That's a good question you ask, especially with the disability. Yeah. That's why we normally we will never hire anybody who has no experience doing community engagement, right? We don't want to exclude anybody. We want to make sure we have a field that allow everybody to participate, irrespective of your status or whatever, right? And so, yes, the aged, the grandmoms, all of them will participate. For instance, we have the Somali grandmoms. Okay? They have a group. Okay? One of our engagement, it's expert. They have been conveying that we used to carry out what is known as a listening circles, and we used to meet with them. Right? They have an incredible amount of wisdom that they need to offer. We need to hear them. Right? Yeah, in the disability, people who have problems, maybe visual or whatever, there's multiple ways we can engage in this survey. Okay, so they are part of. And the last question was about the Asian community. Yes, the Middle Easterns, the Asian community. We partner with LESA, which is the Lebanese organization, right? My friends are there. So that's what we were able to do. And then we have the Afghans. We have people, different people that we need to participate. And the beauty about the whole thing is that I sit on the police equity committee, right? Yes. So I have a data about the interactions with the police and which communities are disproportionately surveyed or stopped, right? When we're using the stop data. So the Asian community cannot be ignored. The Middle Eastern cannot be ignored, right? The indigenous community cannot be ignored. Right? They have to be part of this process.
Good. I also see from your team, the 6 that are on your team, some of them I know Validi. I've met her on a number of occasions, and I've researched them and I see that you have people with very strong facilitation skills. So that's a very good, and God Love story is very touching with his son. I was really taken by that. So these 6 people are going to work with you. This is your team. Are you the main lead?
These 6 people, these are the core. Okay, the core, they are not the entire people we are going to work. They are just the core team members.
Right.
Okay. As you can see, there's nobody from Eastern Southeast Asia or in the group. It doesn't mean that we don't have facilitators there. We don't have people who will be leading. Right. Yeah, but these are the core,
Okay.
the core team. Yeah.
And when you designed this website, I believe you said it would be bilingual. So it'll have, a landing page that explains the program, and then you will have the interactive. And you talked about 10 minutes. So I'm thinking you're going to have quantifiable and qualitative type questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are questions that basically we got. We are able to have a demographic data too.
Yes.
Okay? We want to make sure those putting in which part of the city are they from. Are they in Canada? Are they in Orleans? Are they? And so we have people who put the zip code and other stuff in there, so that we'll be able to make the analysis. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And I too was thinking of the counselors and how important it is because they all have newsletters and they send out their newsletters every week. Some of different times of the week, but they could link, they could have a little blurb to link your website to. The last one that I have question is in regards to the media and advertising. So I'm really glad that Shamini is here today because she's going to help us in getting the word out, aren't you? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Only you could know what I'm currently thinking.
Okay, all right. But I'm just thinking we need to get this out. We need to get the word out on the fine work that you're going to be doing. And so can you tell me how you were thinking of getting that word out?
Yes, so and that's what I was going to talk about because we are pressed for time, so we need approvals very quickly,
Yes.
right, to be able to move forward. Yes, we'll use the social media for sure, right? We use every available media. We use the CBC. We use all the print media, and by the work that I do, I interact with the media a lot, right?
Yes.
Then MSNBC and the CNN, all those people they interview with me, right? So I understand that we need to be able to use the media and put the word out there, especially for the recruitment. We need to be able to people to be able to know that there's something going on. And I like the fact that you suggested that the newsletters of the city councillors, right, also be I receive Wilson King's newsletter, even though I don't live here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all the time, right? So yeah, we need to be able to utilize all those assets that we have in the community, and that's what we call the cultural asset mapping, right? How are we going to sort of recruit, making sure the Burundians, for instance, coming? How are we making sure that the Lebanese coming? Which outlet do we have to use? The Chinese, they have their own newsletter, right?
Yes, they do in their own papers.
Yes, so these are some of the communities that we use, because not everybody consumes news on the TV or they have their own community way, their own cultural way of getting information across. So we need to use multiplicity of.
That's very good. I would suggest doing a press release and having the press release sent out, in all of those avenues that you just indicated now, because this is definitely a pressing and most important, probably the most important outreach that we're going to do with the public this year. So we need to make sure everyone's aware of it.
Good.
Very good. Well, that's it for me. Thank you. Any other questions?
When is day 0, the beginning of the program, once approval is given? Is that a week later, 2 weeks later, to move right into the design phase and go? First question. Second question is, as you're designing and seeking information, feedback on the questionnaire and so on and so forth, we may actually be causing the delays at that point in time, in the sense of, you'll need to get it to us quickly and have us counselors, whomever you're consulting with, get it back quickly. So I think there'll be a lot of communication required to do that, to make sure that we're not bogging down the process.
That's a good question. Yeah, we don't want this to be hanged up anyway, right? So what it means that we have to be following up. Yeah, we send it to you, but we have to follow up. We have a clear deadline for which the response is needed, right? And so respond when it's not coming, we'll pick up the phone, call you and follow up. Hey, what's happening? We want you to look at it if you haven't had the opportunity to look at it. And that's the beauty of having a very short, sweet survey, right? It's easy for you to go through in 10 minutes or 15 to evaluate that. All the questions are culturally appropriate, and we are asking good questions that will bring out what we need, right? Yeah. And you'll ask another question. Sorry.
Oh, just, when is project kickoff?
Okay. As soon as you guys do the approval, that's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, people ready to. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
One of the things, Captain, maybe we can help you to, if we can tap to the city public announcement, because it's bilingual, so we can send the announcement to the city public announcement.
We also have media relations distribution list. We
Yeah.
have the partnership and action list from the police service as well. So
Yeah, that's something, and we can encourage other colleagues and council to newsletter and publicize it. Because the city public announcement has to be bilingual, but you are doing bilingual,
Yeah.
so it's just perfect. So we can help with that.
Excellent. I'll work with Hannah and Krista on that and make sure. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Thank
That's
you.
it?
Thank
Nothing
you
else?
very much.
All right, so we'll, should the committee carry the recommendation that is before us today, the proposal would go to the board for final approval at the May 30th board meeting, so that's another 2 weeks almost. The recommendation reads that the Human Resources Committee recommend that the Ottawa Police Services Board approve, 1, the procurement of Method Solutions by Odgers Bernston to assist with the design, implementation, and report back on the community engagement process for the Chief of Police recruitment. And number 2, the delegation of authority to the Human Resources Committee for approvals related to the community engagement process for the Chief of Police recruitment. Are the recommendations carried?
Okay.
Carried. Thank you. Is there any other business that we'd like to discuss today?
Just need to move fast.
Okay. Our next meeting is to be determined. And can I please have a motion for adjournment?
So
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you very
I
much.
feel
Thanks,
for you.
Margaret.
Thank you,
Thank
Margaret.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Margaret.
Bye-bye.